August 23, 1942. The German Sixth Army stands on the western bank of the Volga River, looking at the Soviet city of Stalingrad. They've conquered most of Europe, defeated France in 6 weeks, pushed the Soviets back 1,000 miles. They're the most successful military force on the planet. Their orders are simple: take Stalingrad, cut the Volga, destroy Soviet morale, win the war. The city should fall in days, maybe weeks. It's mostly civilians. The Red Army is in full retreat. Germany has air superiority, tank superiority, tactical superiority, everything. 6 months later, the German Sixth Army, 300,000 of Germany's best soldiers, will cease to exist. Surrendered, starved, frozen, destroyed. This isn't just a battle. This is the turning point of World War II. The moment Nazi Germany stops winning and starts dying. Let me show you how a city became a meat grinder. How 2 totalitarian regimes threw millions of men into the most brutal urban combat in history. How German soldiers who conquered Europe froze to death in Russian rubble. And how one battle killed more people than some entire wars. This is Stalingrad, the battle that broke the Wehrmacht, the place where the Third Reich began to die. To understand Stalingrad, you need to understand Operation Barbarossa. June 22, 1941. Nazi Germany invades the Soviet Union with 3.8 million men. The largest invasion in human history. Hitler thinks this will take 12 weeks. 3 months to destroy the Red Army, conquer Moscow, force Soviet surrender, then turn back west and finish off Britain. The Germans advance 600 miles in 3 months. Surround Leningrad, get within sight of Moscow, capture millions of Soviet prisoners. It's the most successful military campaign in history. Hitler is a genius. The Wehrmacht is invincible. Except the Soviets don't surrender. They keep fighting, keep dying, keep throwing men into the meat grinder. Stalin orders, not one step back. No retreat, no surrender. Fight to the death or be shot by your own side. Winter comes. The Germans aren't prepared. No winter clothing. No antifreeze for tanks. Temperatures drop to -40. German soldiers freeze to death in their foxholes. Engines won't start. Weapons jam. The Soviets counterattack at Moscow. Push the Germans back. It's the first time the Wehrmacht has been defeated. The myth of invincibility is broken. But Germany recovers. Summer 1942. Hitler launches Case Blue, a new offensive aimed at the Soviet oil fields in the Caucasus. The Sixth Army under General Paulus is part of this offensive. Their objective is the city on the Volga. Stalingrad, named after Stalin himself. A major industrial center. A vital transportation hub. A symbolic target that cannot be allowed to fall. The battle for Stalingrad is about to begin, and it will make hell look like a vacation. General Friedrich Paulus commands the Sixth Army. He's a career officer, meticulous, professional, a planner. He's never disobeyed an order in his life. He's facing General Vasily Chukov, commanding the Soviet 62nd Army defending Stalingrad. Chukov is the opposite, a brawler, a street fighter, a survivor. He's been in the Red Army since 1918. He knows how to take punishment and keep fighting. August 23, 1942. The Luftwaffe launches the most devastating air raid of the war. 600 aircraft. 1,000 tons of bombs. Firebombing creates a firestorm that kills 40,000 civilians in one day. Stalingrad burns. The city is rubble. Corpses everywhere. The Volga River behind the city is the only escape route, and German artillery controls it. Soviet defenders are trapped. Fight here or drown trying to cross the river. There is no retreat. Paulus sends his tanks into the city. This should be quick. The Soviets are demoralized. The city is destroyed. Just push through to the Volga and it's over. The tanks roll into Stalingrad and disappear into the rubble. Urban warfare in 1942 is not something armies train for. The Germans are used to open terrain, tank warfare, maneuver, blitzkrieg. Stalingrad is different. Every building is a fortress. Every pile of rubble hides a sniper. Every basement has Soviet soldiers waiting. Every street is a killing zone. The Germans call it Rattenkrieg, rat warfare. Fighting room to room, floor to floor. Sometimes the Germans hold the first floor of a building and the Soviets hold the second floor. They're fighting vertically through the same structure. Average life expectancy of a Soviet soldier arriving in Stalingrad, 24 hours. For a Soviet officer, 3 days. The casualty rate is incomprehensible, but the Soviets keep sending reinforcements. Across the Volga, at night, under German fire, rowboats, rafts, ferries, whatever floats. Men jump into ice-cold water, drown, get shot, blown up. The river runs red. The ones who make it to the city have maybe a day to live, maybe less. But that's enough. Because every day the Germans are delayed is another day the Soviets can prepare, can build up forces, can plan. If you're enjoying this story of the most brutal battle in history, hit subscribe. This is Untold Battlefield. We cover the battles that defined the modern world, the warriors who refused to break, and the moments that changed everything. Subscribe and let me know in the comments what battle you want to see next. Zhukov develops a tactic: hug the enemy. Stay so close to German lines that they can't use artillery or air support without hitting their own men. Soviet positions are sometimes 50 meters from German positions, sometimes less. Grenade throwing distance. You can hear the enemy talking, smell their cigarettes. The fighting is intimate, personal, brutal. The Germans have better equipment, better training, better tactics. But in this rubble, it doesn't matter. A Soviet soldier with a submachine gun in a basement is just as deadly as a German with a rifle. Maybe more deadly. Because the Soviet soldier knows he can't retreat. Behind him is the Volga. Behind that is a commissar who'll shoot him for cowardice. His only options are fight or die. Usually both. The Germans start to realize they're in a different kind of war. This isn't France. This isn't Poland. This is something else. This is fighting an enemy that doesn't care about casualties, doesn't surrender, just absorbs losses and keeps fighting. September 1942. The battle focuses on specific landmarks. The grain elevator, a massive concrete structure. 50 Soviet soldiers defend it against an entire German division for 5 days. When it finally falls, only a dozen defenders are left alive. They're out of ammunition, fighting with shovels and bayonets. The railway station changes hands 15 times in 6 hours. 15 times. The Germans take it. The Soviets counterattack. The Germans retake it. Back and forth. Each side leaving bodies behind every time. Mamayev Kurgan, a hill overlooking the city. The most important terrain feature. Whoever holds it can observe and direct fire across Stalingrad. The Germans take it. The Soviets take it back. This hill changes hands 8 times. The soil is so mixed with metal from shells and bullets that grass won't grow there for years after the war. The tractor factory. Still producing tanks even as the battle rages around it. Tanks roll off the assembly line directly into combat. Workers grab rifles and join the fight. The factory floor becomes a battlefield. October 1942. The Germans control 90% of the city. The Soviets are compressed into a narrow strip along the Volga. Some positions are only a few hundred meters deep. The Germans can see the river, can hit Soviet supply boats with direct fire. Paulus reports to Hitler, Stalingrad will fall any day now. He said this every week for 2 months. Every week he's wrong. The Soviets won't break. Can't break. Stalin has ordered, not one step back from Stalingrad. So they don't step back. They die where they stand. Soviet snipers become legendary. Vasily Zaitsev, a shepherd from the Urals, kills 225 Germans in the ruins. He hunts German officers, specialists, other snipers. The Germans send their best sniper, SS Standartenführer Heinz Thorvald, to kill Zaitsev. They hunt each other through the ruins for days. Cat and mouse. Professional versus professional. Zaitsev finally kills him with a single shot. Or so the story goes. Some historians think Thorvald was Soviet propaganda. Doesn't matter. The legend inspires Soviet soldiers. Terrifies Germans. The psychological warfare is as important as the physical. Every Soviet soldier knows about Zaitsev. Knows that German officers are being picked off. Knows that in this rubble, a Soviet with a rifle is as dangerous as a German with a tank. November 1942. The Germans are exhausted. They've been fighting for 3 months. 3 months of house-to-house combat. 3 months of constant casualties. No rest. No reinforcements that matter. No end in sight. They control most of the city. But control is meaningless in Stalingrad. There is no front line. No rear area. Everywhere is the front. Soviet soldiers infiltrate at night. Retake positions. Attack supply lines. The city is a living thing that consumes Germans. Then November 19th happens. Operation Uranus. The Soviet counteroffensive. While the 6th Army has been grinding through Stalingrad, the Soviets have been building up massive forces on the flanks, north and south of the city, away from the urban meat grinder, in the open steppe where the Germans aren't focused. The plan is simple, brilliant, devastating. Attack from north and south simultaneously. Cut off the 6th Army. Surround them. Destroy them. The northern pincer attacks at 7:30 a.m. 1 million Soviet soldiers. 900 tanks. Smash through Romanian and Italian armies on the German flanks. These Allied forces aren't as well equipped or motivated as Germans. They break. The southern pincer attacks the same day. More Soviet forces. More tanks. More breakthroughs. The Romanians collapse. The Germans send reserves to plug gaps. Not enough. Not fast enough. November 23rd. 4 days after the offensive begins. The pincers meet at Kalak, west of Stalingrad. The 6th Army is surrounded, cut off, trapped. 300,000 German soldiers. The entire 6th Army, encircled in Stalingrad and the steppe around it. The Kessel, the cauldron, has closed. Paulus requests permission to break out. Fight his way west. Retreat. Save the army. It's the only logical option. The only military solution. Stay in the pocket and you starve. Leave everything heavy behind and you might escape. Hitler refuses. The 6th Army will hold its positions. The Luftwaffe will supply you by air. Relief forces are being organized. Hold Stalingrad. That is an order. Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe, promises Hitler he can supply the 6th Army by air. 500 tons of supplies per day. Minimum. It's possible. The Luftwaffe is the best air force in the world. It's a lie. A catastrophic, fatal lie. But Göring believes his own propaganda. And Hitler wants to believe it. So the order stands. Hold. No retreat. The 6th Army digs in. Prepares to wait for relief. They have maybe 6 weeks of supplies. The Luftwaffe will bring food, ammunition, fuel. The relief forces will arrive. They just have to hold. December 1942. Winter arrives. Properly arrives. Temperatures drop to minus 30 Celsius. Minus 22 Fahrenheit. Then lower. Minus 40 some days. German soldiers don't have winter uniforms. Still. A year and a half into the Russian campaign, and Germany still hasn't learned. The Luftwaffe tries to supply the pocket. The airfields are under Soviet artillery fire. The weather grounds planes for days. When they do fly, Soviet fighters shoot them down. The Luftwaffe delivers maybe 100 tons per day. Not 500. Not even close. The 6th Army starts to starve. Rations are cut. Cut again. Cut again. Soldiers are eating horses. Rats. Anything. Frostbite is epidemic. Men lose fingers, toes, noses to the cold. The wounded die because there are no medical supplies being flown in. And they keep fighting. Because the relief force is coming. Any day now. Just hold a little longer. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein is tasked with relieving Stalingrad. He's the best operational commander Germany has. If anyone can do it, Manstein can. Operation Winter Storm. December 12th. Manstein attacks toward the pocket with 4th Panzer Army. Tries to fight through 50 miles of Soviet defenses. Get to the 6th Army. Create a corridor. Evacuate them or resupply them. The panzers advance 30 miles. Get within 30 miles of the pocket. The closest they'll ever get. The Soviet defenses stiffen. More forces arrive. The advance stalls. Manstein begs Paulus, break out. I can't reach you. You have to meet me halfway. Abandon Stalingrad. Come west. Paulus refuses. Hitler's orders are clear. Hold Stalingrad. Paulus has never disobeyed an order in his life. He's not starting now, even if it means his army dies. December 23rd. Manstein's relief offensive is stopped. Pushed back. The Soviets counterattack. The relief force has to retreat to avoid being cut off themselves. The 6th Army is alone. Abandoned. Left to die in Stalingrad. January 1943. The death spiral accelerates. The 6th Army is out of food, out of fuel, out of ammunition. They're burning furniture to stay warm, eating leather boots. The wounded are dying in frozen hospitals without medicine. The Luftwaffe has stopped even trying to supply them effectively. The airports in the pocket are overrun by Soviets. Supply drops land in Soviet-held territory. The pilots who do get through bring mail instead of food. Letters from home. Worthless. You can't eat mail. German soldiers are freezing in their foxholes. Some fall asleep on guard duty and never wake up. Frozen solid. Others shoot themselves. Suicide rates skyrocket. Why wait to starve or freeze when you can end it now? The Soviets tighten the noose. Attack from all sides. The pocket shrinks. And shrinks. The 6th Army is compressed into a smaller and smaller area. Less room to maneuver. Easier for Soviet artillery to hit everything. January 8th. The Soviets offer surrender terms. Decent terms. Paulus can surrender with honor. His men will be treated well as prisoners. Food. Medical care. Survival. Paulus asks Hitler for permission to surrender. Hitler responds, surrender is forbidden. The 6th Army will hold to the last man and last round. Paulus will be promoted to Field Marshal. The promotion is a message. No German Field Marshal has ever surrendered in history. Hitler is saying, die honorably. Don't be the first to surrender. Paulus refuses to surrender. The battle continues. The dying continues. The Soviets attack the pocket systematically. Split it in two. Then into smaller pieces. Isolate German units. Destroy them one by one. It's methodical, brutal, efficient. German soldiers are surrendering in small groups, then larger groups, then entire units. Despite Hitler's orders, despite Paulus's orders, they're starving, freezing, dying. Surrender is survival. The Soviets are stunned by what they find. German soldiers who look like skeletons, haven't eaten in weeks, can barely walk. Frostbite has turned their limbs black. These were the supermen who conquered Europe. These broken, dying scarecrows? January 31st, 1943. Paulus is in a basement in the ruins of a department store. The Univermag. Soviet forces are outside. He's surrounded by his staff. The end has come. Paulus sends a final message to Hitler. The 6th Army, true to their oath and conscious of the lofty importance of their mission, have held their position to the last man and the last round for Führer and fatherland unto the end. Then he surrenders. Walks out of the basement with a white flag. Becomes the first German field marshal to surrender in history. Hitler is furious. Rages about betrayal. He should have shot himself. He should have died honorably. Paulus doesn't care. His men are dying. His army is destroyed. His oath was to Germany, not to Hitler. And Germany needed him alive to testify about the madness. February 2nd, 1943. The last German units in Stalingrad surrender. The battle is over. 6 months. The bloodiest battle in human history. German and Axis casualties, 850,000. Dead, wounded, captured. The entire 6th Army, 300,000 men, is gone. Destroyed. Of the 91,000 prisoners taken at the end, only 6,000 will survive Soviet captivity to return home. Soviet casualties, 1.1 million. Dead, wounded, missing. More than the Germans. But the Soviets can absorb those losses. They have the population, the industrial base, the will to keep fighting. Civilian casualties in Stalingrad, 40,000 plus in the initial bombing. Unknown thousands more during the battle. The city is erased. Literally, 99% of buildings destroyed. It's not a city anymore. It's a graveyard. Total casualties, 2 million. In one battle. In 6 months. In one city. More deaths than the United States suffered in the entire war. More than Britain. More than France. In one battle. The impact of Stalingrad cannot be overstated. This is the turning point of World War II. Before Stalingrad, Germany was winning. After Stalingrad, Germany is losing. The myth of Wehrmacht invincibility is shattered. An entire German army was encircled and destroyed. If the 6th Army can be beaten, any German force can be beaten. German morale collapses. Goebbels declares total war in a desperate speech. Every German must contribute. Victory is still possible, but nobody believes it anymore. Stalingrad proved the war is lost. It's just a question of when. Soviet morale soars. They stopped the Germans. Destroyed them. The Great Patriotic War can be won. The Red Army starts to believe in itself. Starts to attack more. Retreat less. The strategic balance shifts. Germany has lost 300,000 of its best soldiers. Irreplaceable losses. Tanks. Planes. Equipment. All gone. The Wehrmacht will never fully recover. The Soviets, meanwhile, are getting stronger. Lend-Lease from America brings trucks, food, supplies. Soviet industry has been relocated behind the Urals. Tank production is increasing. They're replacing losses. Getting better equipped. Learning from mistakes. The tide has turned. At Stalingrad. In the ruins. In the rubble. In the frozen hell by the Volga. Let's talk about why Germany lost Stalingrad. First, strategic overreach. Case Blue tried to accomplish too much. The Caucasus oil fields and Stalingrad. Split forces. Overextended supply lines. Second, Hitler's interference. Refusing to allow retreat. Forbidding flexibility. Micromanaging from 1,000 miles away. Good generals couldn't do their jobs because Hitler kept overruling them. Third, underestimating the enemy. Again. The Soviets were supposed to be beaten. Demoralized. Ready to collapse. Instead they fought harder. Smarter. More desperately than Germany expected. Fourth, logistics. The Luftwaffe couldn't supply the pocket. Göring promised 500 tons daily. Delivered 100 on good days. 0 on bad days. An army cannot survive on air supply. It's never worked. It won't work here. Fifth, urban warfare. The Wehrmacht was trained for open maneuver warfare. Blitzkrieg. Not grinding house-to-house combat. The Soviets turned Stalingrad into a meat grinder that negated German advantages. Sixth, winter. Again. For the second year. Germany didn't prepare. Didn't learn. Soldiers froze. Weapons froze. Vehicles froze. The same mistakes as 1941. Repeated. Fatal. Seventh, Soviet improvement. The Red Army of 1942 was better than 1941. Better led. Better equipped. Better tactics. They were learning. Germany was stagnant. The Soviet tactics at Stalingrad deserve attention. Hug the enemy, prevented German artillery and air superiority from mattering. Keep positions so close that calling in fire support risks hitting your own men. Forces the Germans to fight infantry versus infantry, where Soviet numbers matter. Reinforcement across the Volga. Insane casualties. But it worked. Keep feeding men into the city. Accept the losses. As long as someone is holding the line, the city hasn't fallen. The deep battle doctrine. While Stalingrad raged, build up forces on the flanks. Strike where the Germans are weak, the Allied armies. Encircle the main force. Classic Soviet operational art. Maskirovka, deception. Hide the buildup. Make Germany think all Soviet reserves are going into the city. Then hit them from the flanks. Surprise. Shock. Victory. The Soviets at Stalingrad showed they could outthink the Germans. Outfight them. Outlast them. This wasn't the Red Army of 1941 anymore. This was a force that could win. The human cost of Stalingrad is almost incomprehensible. 2 million casualties. Think about that number. That's the population of Houston, Texas, or Philadelphia. Gone. In 6 months. In one city. Every building became a slaughterhouse. The grain elevator. Pavlov's house, a single apartment building defended by one platoon for 58 days. The tractor factory. The railway station. Each one has casualty numbers that would make other battles look small. Soviet reinforcements expected to live 24 hours. That's not hyperbole. That's the actual statistic. One day. If you survived longer, you were lucky. Skilled. Both. German soldiers slowly starving and freezing in the pocket. Eating their horses. Then their leather gear. Then nothing. Frostbite turning extremities black. Gangrene. Death from cold. From hunger. From disease. The wounded suffered worst. No medicine. No anesthesia. Amputations performed without painkillers. Men screaming. Dying. German doctors doing surgery by candlelight in frozen basements. Soviet wounded dying because there's no way to evacuate them across the Volga. This is industrial age warfare at its most horrific. Modern weapons. Total war. No mercy. No quarter. Just death. In every form imaginable. After the battle, Stalingrad doesn't exist. It's rubble. Corpses. Frozen bodies everywhere. Some won't be found for years. They're buried in collapsed buildings. Frozen in the Volga. Lost in the ruins. The city is rebuilt after the war. Renamed Volgograd in 1961 during de-Stalinization. But everyone still calls it Stalingrad in their memory. The battle is too famous. The name too linked to the event. The Mamayev Kurgan is turned into a memorial. The Motherland Call statue, a massive monument showing a woman with a raised sword, 279 feet tall. One of the largest statues in the world. She faces west, toward Germany, defiant, victorious. Stalingrad becomes the defining moment of the Great Patriotic War for the Soviets. The turning point. The victory that proved they could win. Every Soviet citizen knows someone who fought there, who died there. It's seared into national memory. For Germany, Stalingrad is the beginning of the end. The disaster they can't recover from. The battle that proved Hitler would lead them to destruction. Some German generals start thinking about how to end the war. Survive. Some start thinking about killing Hitler. The prisoners taken at Stalingrad have a terrible fate. 91,000 German and Axis soldiers surrender. They're starving, sick, frostbitten. The Soviets march them into captivity. It's not much better than the battle. Forced labor in Siberia. Prisoner camps with minimal food. Disease. The cold. They're already weak from Stalingrad. Most don't survive. Of the 91,000 captured, only 6,000 returned to Germany. That's a 93% death rate in Soviet captivity. Some historians argue it's revenge for German treatment of Soviet prisoners, who had 57% death rate in German camps. Others say it's just the reality of Soviet resources. They can barely feed their own people. Feeding German prisoners is low priority. Either way, Stalingrad survivors who lived through the battle often died in the camps. The battle just took longer to kill them. Paulus himself survives. Lives in Soviet captivity until 1953. Returns to East Germany. Denounces Hitler. testifies about Nazi crimes, dies in 1957. The field marshal who surrendered, the man who lost the Sixth Army. Some call him a traitor. Others call him a pragmatist who saved what men he could by surrendering when he did. History is complicated. Walk through Volgograd today. The city is modern, rebuilt. 1 million people live there. There are museums, monuments. The Panorama Museum showing the battle. The Mamayev-Kurgan Memorial. You can see Pavlov's house restored as a memorial. The building that one Soviet platoon held for 2 months against constant German attacks. A symbol of Soviet determination. You can stand at the grain elevator. Still standing. Bullet holes still visible in the concrete. Imagine 50 men defending this against thousands. 4-5 days. With nothing but rifles and grenades. You can climb Mamayev-Kurgan, the hill that changed hands 8 times. Stand where the motherland calls statue towers overhead. Look out over the city. Try to imagine it all in ruins. On fire. Frozen. 2 million people fighting and dying here. It's peaceful now. Quiet. A normal Russian city. But the memories are everywhere. The monuments. The museums. The survivors, fewer each year, who come back to remember. February 2nd is Stalingrad Victory Day in Russia. Every year. Celebrations. Parades. Remembrance. The battle that changed everything. The strategic lessons from Stalingrad are studied in every military academy. Don't get fixed in urban terrain. Don't let your enemy dictate the terms of battle. Don't underestimate your opponent. Don't let ideology override military reality. Don't overextend your supply lines. Don't promise air supply can replace ground logistics. Don't forbid retreat when retreat is the only option. Don't fight on 2 fronts if you can avoid it. Don't assume the enemy will break just because you will them to break. These are obvious lessons. Germany violated all of them at Stalingrad and paid the price. The destruction of an entire army. The beginning of the end. For the Soviets, different lessons. Urban warfare can negate enemy superiority in technology and training. Depth of defense allows for operational maneuver. Deception works. Patience works. Willingness to take horrific casualties can lead to strategic victory. These are harder lessons. More brutal. But in total war, brutality sometimes wins. Stalingrad and the Holocaust are happening simultaneously. While German soldiers are dying in Stalingrad, Auschwitz is operating at full capacity. The final solution is being implemented across occupied Europe. This context matters. Because German defeat at Stalingrad begins the reversal that will eventually liberate the camps. The Soviet advance west starts here. At Stalingrad. The Red Army that will eventually reach Berlin and end the war is learning how to beat Germany in these ruins. Every month Germany is delayed is another month the Holocaust continues. Every month the Soviets need to prepare for the next offensive is another month of genocide. Stalingrad didn't stop the Holocaust, but it started the process that would end it. By destroying Germany's best army. By proving the Wehrmacht could be beaten. By beginning the long bloody march to Berlin. 6 months. 1 city, 2 million casualties. The bloodiest battle in human history. That's Stalingrad. That's the turning point. That's where Nazi Germany's fate was sealed. Not on the beaches of Normandy. Not at Kursk. At Stalingrad. In the ruins of a Soviet industrial city on the Volga River. Where German soldiers who conquered Europe froze and starved to death. Where Soviet soldiers died by the thousands to hold a line they couldn't retreat from. Where 2 totalitarian regimes ground their armies into paste for 6 months of hell. The Germans never recovered. The Soviets never stopped. From Stalingrad, it's a bloody road to Berlin. Kursk. Bagration. Vistula Oder. Berlin itself. But it starts here. At Stalingrad. Hitler wanted Stalingrad because it bore Stalin's name. Wanted to humiliate his enemy by taking the city. Instead, he destroyed his own army trying. Lost the war in the attempt. Stalin wanted Stalingrad defended because it bore his name. Because retreat was ideologically unacceptable. Because every Soviet citizen needed to see that Germany could be stopped. And it was. at the cost of 1 million Soviet lives. Both dictators sacrificed armies for symbolic victories. Both used ideology over military sense. Both spent lives like they were infinite. The difference? The Soviet Union had more lives to spend, more population, more industrial capacity, more willingness to accept casualties. Germany's resources were finite. Every division lost at Stalingrad was irreplaceable. Every veteran killed was a trained soldier gone forever. Germany couldn't afford Stalingrad. They lost it anyway. August 23, 1942, the 6th Army looked at Stalingrad and thought, this will be easy. February 2, 1943, the 6th Army ceased to exist. In between, 300,000 Germans learned that nothing about the Eastern Front was easy. Most learned it by dying. That's Stalingrad. That's total war. That's what happens when industrial powers fight without limits, without mercy, without compromise. The bloodiest battle in human history. The turning point of World War II. The graveyard of the Wehrmacht. The birth of Soviet victory. All in one city. In 6 months. In the frozen hell by the Volga. Stalingrad. Where armies went to die. Where the Third Reich began to fall. Where history turned.